Hello and welcome Exiles to day 4 of the 10-div challenge. Today I try to go for Pyroclast. Now Pyroclast has a history of being a strong boss killer, or it did. Previously when it was introduced, it kind of dominated the meta for boss killing. It took a heavy nerf, and since then I haven't personally seen it be played, and I've never played it myself, so I figured I'd give it a go, because I think Pyroclast, I think it's still pretty strong. The way it scales based on you doing some sort of mine detonation sequence seems like it's really strong in terms of extra projectiles and the extra damage boost it gets on an enemy when nearby mines or next to him with that aura effect. So I said, you know what, I'm going to build around it. Now, the key things I chose to build around for this character is... defensively, I wanted to do Divine Flesh in combination with Incandescent Heart. These two items give you 75% of your elemental damage taken as chaos. For me, I have to always look for, when I'm making a character, a way to deal with elemental damage that's convincing, as well as maybe dealing with chaos damage with this just chaos res cap. But this is kind of two birds with one stone, because it gives me a reason to invest into max chaos res while also taking a large portion of the elemental damage as chaos. Similarly to how the Heavy Strike character used Tempered by War and Divine Flesh to mitigate lightning and cold, this just mitigates all three elements while I just invest into max res for chaos res, and it also gives us a way to sidestep basically penetration. Now on top of that, I would try to go for determination, some decent armor. I think we got around to 20k with our molten shell. Isn't really anything to write home about particularly, but that's also part of the limitations of it's hard to get armor when you're on the side of the tree that doesn't get percent armor scaling. So that's largely what I was lacking. Probably some gear could have helped it, sort of thing. But point is, for 10 divine and my limitations, I'm pretty happy with it. Now, on top of that, the other thing I wanted to invest into, well, you can see I have my favorite skill on, which is Righteous Fire. The one fun thing I like, or one of my favorite nodes about Saboteur, has always been Pyromaniac. It's basically, hey, 10% regen per second from one node. This is actually one of the strongest regen nodes in the game. Outside of Pious Path still beats it because you can scale into basically doubling your regen, but it's still one of the strongest per second regen nodes in the game because of how much regen you get from here. And then you get another 2.5% regen from a mastery. So just right all out of the gate, we have 12.5% regen base, and then you mix in something like a vitality, you mix in an immortal flesh, you mix in some life regen rate on your gear, and at base we have about 1100 regen per second. Now you can see when I throw and detonate one of these mines, 2.5% gives us like another 200 to 300 regen, or whatever that number comes out to. And imagine another 10% regen on top of that. It gets above 2k plus regen per second, on top of having spell suppress cap and that large amount of basically elemental mitigation from all of the elemental damage taken as chaos. And we have 84 max chaos res here. Now in an ideal, probably min-max setup, maybe I go for some Born to Chaos, maybe I start trying to go for 90 max chaos res. That probably is an optimal play, but I ended up deciding to opt on more of the I want to do damage side of things and invest into damage where I could, because a lot of these Ubers, when I've failed them, it's largely been to my characters aren't dealing enough damage, or I've invested too much into tank, so I decided to go for more damage this time, and that's what I went for. So this character did a combination of Deadly Infusion, stealing from the Assassin, Charged Mind Support, and basically Assassin's Mark. Tried to stack as much I could in terms of base crit on top of the power charges I could get that were nearby. I'm not sure if I've even crit capped. I think maybe I did decent at crit capping. I don't really know. I'm just kind of guessing. I don't like to plug everything into PUB. I just like to think I'm just like, that seems like enough crit investment. I don't know if it is. For all I know, I'm either over capped on crit or I'm way under, and I actually made some mistakes and should have put more into it. But this is kind of just guesswork I like to do because I don't really like to spell everything out in PUB. Now, on top of that, I will hit one thing I wasn't sure about, which was Astral Projector. Everybody in chat, when I was putting the guild together, they said, you gotta use Astral Projector, you gotta use it. And I was just like, I don't know, man. I'm losing basically an entire ring's worth of stats. What does Astral Projector give? I can just throw the mines on top of the boss and that do damage that way. And I have to say, after playing with it, this definitely feels like it's worth it. There's no reason you should not use this on Pyroclast. It's just too convenient to have the auto aim, from what I could tell from when I actually played with it. Sure, an extra ring's worth of stats and getting closer to 5k life would be nice and all, and benefiting more from my regen investment, but ultimately the auto aim of Astral Projector is fantastic. Now, That covers most of the basics. My gear is pretty much just some random enchanted helm I threw some essence at till I could either get life regenerate or suppress. I hit life regenerate and I called it good, and then life regenerate and some decent res boots. Nothing crazy here. It's basically just you don't have a lot of money, so you got to buy some cheap stuff, throw a couple essences at it, and call it a day. Pretty much is how I opted for my gear. Now, the one nice premium piece I have is actually Incandescent Heart. Now, this is a premium piece, I say in quotations, because although this is a very cool corruption, you say, okay, you're jacking up the budget. Is this really that hard of a corruption to get? And I wanted to showcase this, and this is something that I think is cool about Pyroclast Mine, and this is cool about a lot of skills, but Pyroclast Mine actually has about 5 possible tags that are roughly worth a +2 value by itself. So if I just wanted a +2 on Incandescent Heart, I'm looking at 40-50C, and that's already going to be a pretty good chess piece. Now, I think probably since I streamed yesterday, I think people sniped up the other chess pieces with this, but don't just think about Incandescent Heart as your only option. See, take this. This is something I want to try to encourage people to do when you're making your own builds. It is so key to think about, okay, where can I grab power, and what is power? +4 levels represents 40% more damage. So there might be some undervalued chest that's maybe 20-30% less value than a normal good min-max chest would be, but then you add in a +2 and it gets very good. And the thing is, I wouldn't necessarily have to make this build around Incandescent Heart. I could take Incandescent Heart out of the build and the build would still work. And if I wanted to get something with a +4 level on it, look at this, Beast First Shawl, 1 Chaos, +4. And you could do this, and now in my character I don't have Empower, I couldn't afford an Empower, so the +1 socket is actually only a +3 in this specific scenario. Normally if you have +1 socketed, it's the best implicit possible, but that is implying you have an Empower. So I'll give an example of a chest that would be good. I'm forgetting the name of it, but it has +1 aura gems on it. This is an example of if I was going for simply the chest for maximum DPS would be a Victario's Influence. This is a 10C chest, 10C chest, 10C chest, 30C chest, 20C, 20C, 20, you know. My point is, it's not, don't limit yourself to one specific thing. Be a little bit more malleable in your build. If you're doing a spell, for example, plus levels are very powerful, and it's always worth something to look for the plus levels. I knew I wanted to do Incandescent Heart. I was positive I was going to get a +2 for cheap, right? I was positive I was going to get one of these mods on an Incandescent Heart for basically no money, right? I knew I was gonna log in, and this is gonna be cheap. It's not a popular chest, but I thought, you know what, maybe I'll get a +2. So I did pop in the +2, and I got the chest I found for 1 divine. Now there's one for 4 divines, then there's one of 15 divines at 9 days ago, and these are ones that just probably aren't gonna sell for this amount, or they're people that saw me streaming last night and they bought them and flipped them, or they started to try to flip them, basically. Point is, in the middle of my stream, I had somebody complaining about me having this chest because I bought it for 1 divine at the start of the stream within 5 minutes of searching. It wasn't hard, right? And they said, no, that's a 15 divine chest. And I proceeded to go on trade, and I found a chest that was strictly going to be better for my build. Another chest with +4 instead of +3 for 1 divine, and I'm going to resell it for 1 divine. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. But my point is, if you're making your own builds or you're trying to work on a budget, always be open to being malleable on your chest choice, especially if it's a spell build, because you can really get some good benefits out of that. Now, I also want to say, it's not just like you can limit yourself to these implicits. There are other implicits that would be arguably better. Like, for example, 50% damage. For all I know, I didn't get a lot of percent damage on my build. 50% damage right here might even just be better than +1 socketed in my current setup I have here. So if I expand my options for some other implicits that are also good, 45% damage, +2, 2 divines, that would have been well within the 10 divine budget range for me to go for this chest, for example. So I just want to say there's always going to be other options. Keep your mind open. Ultimately, though, I wanted to build around Incandescent Heart. I had planned on a +2. I got a little bit lucky when I went on trade and got a +3. I don't think it would have changed the results. I still would have cleaned every Uber except exarch, even if I was just using a +2 versus this +3. But it was still nice to have that little extra advantage. Also, I should say, this has gained 15%. It's a lower end, or it's a mid-roll, I think. Yeah, it's a mid-roll of gain Elia's damage. A +2 with a top roll gain Elia's damage is still... it's going to be much less than just 10% more damage. It's going to be closer to just only 5% more damage at that point if I had just a better roll on the chest piece. Stuff like that is always something you could factor into. Now, that's enough about my gearing and my basically approach of going Divine Flesh. What are the other things that this is something that I'm not sure I was good at or I even did right. Pyroclast has a bunch of benefits for detonation sequencing, which I've never done before. I've never played with it before. I basically threw this character together, did 5 maps of practice, and then went into Ubers not really knowing what I was doing. And I still don't know if I know what I'm doing. For all I know, my links are even wrong, because I know there's specifically a support that gives like a bunch more damage based on previous mines in the detonation sequence, and I didn't even use that. And for all I know, that's the right choice. And for all I know, minefield over swift assembly is the right choice. The way I probably put this character together was probably ultimately wrong, given by the fact I've never done detonation sequencing before, and I haven't tried out the other varieties. I just went to the things I know. I know I like swift assembly. I know I like regular damage gems. For all I know, if I went and grabbed the support that does the detonation sequencing, it might have been a benefit to me and much better for the build. So I just want to throw that out there. If you know how to play mine builds, don't necessarily take this as like word of law of how you should set up your links. I'm just want to throw this out there. I'm inexperienced in this myself. And so with a grain of salt, I say, for all I know, these links are just not the correct way to do this. My general approach was, I'm going to throw the mines out, I'm going to start my sequence, and then I'm going to throw more mines on top of it. And you see they start getting those crazy projectiles, and then you have to restart it. And this is like a playstyle that I wasn't really sure when I was supposed to restart my detonation sequencing or how to get like used to it or whatnot, but I think over time I was getting a little bit better at it, but I was still probably making some mistakes. Pyroclast itself is, I would say, very strong skill and definitely doable on a budget, especially if it's not popular. And I can recommend this in future if you want to make a miner. Basically, I found it to be quite strong. Maybe it's dependent on Astral Projector. Maybe without Astral Projector, it won't feel good enough. The thing is, I've leveled with this skill when I was leveling my Hex Blast Miner, and I wasn't using Astral Projector, and even when I wasn't using Astral Projector, I had a fun time leveling with it, so I'm not sure this is even mandatory. I think it's just a really huge QOL. Once you get into higher end and popping it on, it'll just be some feels good for mapping, as well as a little bit of auto-targeting for bosses. So that covers my main defensive layers. On top of that, I was pretty lazy about my flasks. I didn't really think about it too much. I decided to go for a Forbidden Taste with a Use on Savage hit. This gives a mod that makes me take DPS, KS damage per second, which is heavily mitigated by my high max chaos res, and then it gives me basically a save. Basically, if I take a big hit, it'll pop me right back to full, so sometimes it saves me in fights. I don't know, I thought it was kind of useful just for an auto flask, some life flasks with Soul of Rysatha. This is me basically trying out the meta or the OP. These probably aren't even the right crafts on the flasks, but I've never really played with life flasks before. Honestly, it feels a little bit OP. I think if you're going to do Ubers and your character doesn't have good sustain, just throw in a couple life flasks. It makes the fights much easier. If you get hit down to low, you press one button and you're instantly back up to full. I have always been like skeptical and wanted to say like, oh, that's a stupid way to recover your health, but honestly in a boss fight it's just powerful. It's just a convenient, you press one button, you get your life back sort of situation. And then on top of that, I think all in all the character is something I'm pretty happy with. And going forward tonight, I think I'm gonna try Stormbind. I played Stormbind half a year ago. It's wonky, it's a weird skill, and I think I had a lot of fun with it, and we'll see how it goes tonight. I'll give you guys a quick look at the rundown of the update on the, what is it, the sheet, as I accidentally... Can I fix this? Okay, I can undo my mistakes. Okay, I wrote over something on accident for the rules, but basically, as far as this build went, it went 7 out of 8. The only reason I failed Exarch, it's on me, it's not on the build. I could tank multiple balls from Exarch in a row, but it wasn't just multiple balls. I was taking, I would find a way to run into like 6 right in a row, and it was just like, this is something I need to get better as a player, which is Exarch specifically as a boss fight I am not good at. The only time I've done Exarch so far, I believe, was on the Spark Trap. I did Exarch? No, I failed Exarch on Spark Trap as well. So I haven't done Exarch a single time successfully on any of these builds, and I don't think it's largely because the build is necessarily not good enough for Exarch. That's more of a me issue. Unless I have the DPS to instantly kill Exarch and then not have degen ground around all over or whatever, because I am very bad with two things, and that's ground degen I have trouble seeing, and ball phases, and Exarch has both of those things. So hopefully I will be able to make, by the end of this build competition, one build where I manage to kill Exarch, and we'll see. It's probably gonna have to be a build that pushes some extreme DPS, because that's usually the only way I can do Exarch comfortably, or a build that can straight up just tank 100 balls to the face in the ball phase to not lose a death every single time he does that phase sort of situation. Anyways, hopefully, as always, you've enjoyed this video. I'll have a link in the description for the 10 div challenge, and coming up, we're gonna have, apparently Tuna is also gonna join the challenge. He's gonna do it, and hopefully Tripolar Bear is gonna be putting out some more builds tonight or today. Rutu did actually Jung's Blade Trapper, and it dominated at 8 out of 8. So our first 8 out of 8 occurred for Rutu today, and maybe I can do the same tonight. We'll see. Anyways, as always, hopefully you enjoyed. Take care, Exiles. Peace out.